Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Third, and this week on Mixing Wednesdays, I decided to do a little review of my new Audient iD44. I've had my eye on this for a very, very long time. So I thought I'd compare it versus my old, sturdy Audient iD14. There are many Audient iD14 users out there, and many people have asked me to do a comparison talking about the feature set of both and whether the Audient iD44 is worth the upgrade from the sturdy old standard iD14. So let's do it. Right, so first let's compare the main differences between the two, right? So Audient iD14, let's talk about the inputs, right? So you've got two mic/line inputs. The iD44 has four mic/line inputs. In terms of the JFET DI, Audient Audient iD14 has one, the iD44 has two. And then in terms of your outs, you have one set of line outs. In the Audient iD44, you have two sets of line outs. And then in terms of your headphone out, you've got one headphone out in the iD14. iD44, you have two. And the great thing about the iD44 is that it has its own separate DAC for the headphones, where in this, I'm pretty sure it's all connected to the same converter. Right, so that's inputs and outputs. Let's talk about connectivity. So, in terms of the iD14, it is USB-B. And the Audient iD44 is USB-C. So, you are going to have faster transfer rates due to the fact that that's USB-C. In terms of connecting other digital audio interfaces, the iD14 only has one optical in, where in the iD44 you have two sets of optical in and out. So you can do ADAT in and out. So in that you've got, I'm pretty sure it's you can get up to 16 additional IOs in that, which is pretty good. Right, so in terms of a straight side-by-side comparison, obviously the iD44 has what the iD14 has, but it gives you more options and it has more of it. Right, so how about we look at the extra features that the iD44 has that the Audient iD14 doesn't have. So, sticking with the whole connectivity side of things, the iD44 has its own word clock out, which is going to give you better synchronicity with other digital audio interfaces. Now, another thing that the iD14 does not have that the iD44 does have is three programmable F keys that you can use to provide alternative monitoring options. You can sum the entire track into mono, and there's also a polarity flip as well, so you can flip the phase. You can actually combine the two, so you could choose from mono sum, which is going to give you the mid, and then you can combine the phase flip and the mono sum to give you the sides, so you can actually monitor in mid side. And seeing as you have two line out options, so you can have two sets of monitors connected to the iD44, you can have a programmable F key for an alternative monitor, so you could switch through the monitors. So say if you had like your Adam monitors through line outs 1 and 2, and you had like your NS10s out of lines 3 and 4, you can use a programmable F key and switch between both monitors in real time, which is really, really cool. Now, there are also two other monitoring options that you can use that actually come on the interface itself. So you've got dim and cut. Dim's pretty cool. What you could do, you can go on your iD44 mixer software, and you can actually select a certain level that you can set, and then you press the dim, and then it'll automatically attenuate your monitoring down to a certain level. So I was thinking, like, why would you need that? And I was thinking more from a mastering point of view. I thought it could be quite interesting, where obviously when you're mastering, you're always trying to get it louder. So if you kind of wanted to hear the impact of the limiting that you were doing in your mastering, like what you could do is when you were listening to your, say, your master that's been limited, and again, you've increased the level, you can press the dim switch and bring that down to your like original mix volume level. And then when you're listening to the original mix, you press the dim button, and then that'll raise the level again. So it's kind of a quick way of being able to kind of listen to what the limiting's actually doing in real time. Honestly, I don't really know. That's the only thing that kind of came in my head of how that would be useful. The cut makes more sense to me because it's cutting the output signal to the monitors. And I was also thinking that that could be quite handy as well, especially if you're kind of using the headphones as well. Because say, like, for example, you're listening on the monitors and you want to kind of quickly reference someone on the headphones, you can press cut the signal to the monitors, and then listen to your headphones, because I'm pretty sure it does not affect the headphone outs because they've got their own separate DAC. So I'm pretty sure it wouldn't affect it. So you could listen to your monitors without having the interaction of the monitors getting in the way as well. And lastly, in terms of monitoring, you have your talkback switch, which I think is a really, really cool feature. The great thing about the talkback switch is that you can have like a microphone like setup right on a certain channel. You can assign that channel to that talkback switch, and then you could set it up to like a headphone queue. And then that way, when you need to speak, say, so for example, if you're recording somebody and they've got their headphones on and you want to talk to them, what you can do is press the talkback switch, that microphone will engage, and your vocal will be sent only to that headphone queue. So it's genuinely like being in a studio with a little talkback switch, but obviously you've got to have a microphone set up. Right, so that's the monitoring. Now, I thought I would leave this bit to last because I generally think that this, for me, this was one of the things that really, really, really made me want an iD44. Now, on channels 1 and 2, you have an insert, send, and return, right, on channels 1 and 2. Now, many of you guys will be asking, Paul, what is the use of the insert, send, and return? It's actually a really, really great feature. So for example, if I wanted to compress this vocal right now through a compressor, I could do that and track with it. So what the send's doing is sending the level from your microphone into your compressor, then from your compressor out into your insert return, straight into the converter. And that is how you can track in real time using the Audient iD44. Now, if you watched my converter test where I compared the conversion of the iD14 versus a Lynx converter, one thing that you'll know from that video is something that I was quite annoyed about was that if I wanted to print analog hardware, I had to go through the mic pre's, which is quite frustrating in the iD14 because you're getting that coloration and that linear frequency response. It's got a little bit of a dip in the highs, so you're not really getting a fully transparent signal. Now, the great thing about the iD44 is that you can go straight from a line out, so you can send your signal from your DAW via a line out straight in to the insert return, which bypasses the mic pre's and goes directly into the analog to digital converter. Now, for anybody that's wondering why you would want to bypass the pre's and go straight into the iD44 converters, I'll show you the linear frequency response of the pre compared to the converters. As you can see, going straight into the iD44 converters, it's extremely linear, okay? It's extremely flat, but again, you can see in the pre, again, you kind of got a little bit of a high-end roll-off. So you're losing the high end of your hardware. So in a sense, you're not really capturing the true essence of the hardware, really, because you're losing a bit of top end. And also, just as a bit of fun, what I thought I would do is I would do a null test to show you the difference of conversion of printing analog hardware through an Audient iD4 Mark 1 at 96K. So what I'm going to show you now is a null test compared to running the signal through the iD44 converters. So there you go. I have hopefully proven that the iD44's conversion is more transparent than the iD14 Mark 1 running at 96K. Where the iD44 really starts to run away from the iD14 is in the conversion. Total harmonics distortion plus noise in the iD14 Mark 1 is 0.02%, where in the iD44 it is 0.0008%. So the converters in the iD44 are much cleaner than the Audient iD14. And another big thing is the dynamic range. If you've watched that video talking all about like converters and stuff, like you'll hear me talking about dynamic range. I'll put a link up to here in case you've not seen it. The Audient iD14 Mark 1, that has 116 dB of dynamic range, where the iD44 has 121 dB of dynamic range. And to be honest, right, 121 dB of dynamic range, that is more than enough to cover any analog unit. And another important thing for me is the DAC, right? Your digital to analog conversion. So what do you want from your line outs, right? One, you want to have a good level of output coming out of your line outs, and you also want them to be clean as well, because again, that's going to your monitoring. So in terms of the THD plus noise, big difference there. The iD14 Mark I has 0.03%, where the iD44 has 0.0006%. So again, where it matters, in my opinion, the iD44 is much cleaner than the iD14. And let's kind of go to the last thing, because I know everybody will be like,
what about the headphones? What about the headphone amp?
Right, okay. In terms of the headphone outs, there is a massive difference. Now, in terms of headphone outs, distortion is a thing that's very, very, very important. Again, if you've not watched the topping video I've done, I'll leave a link up to that somewhere and in the description. Suggest you watch that. The topping has very, very, very low THD plus noise. Distortion is very, very important. And when it comes to headphones, okay, so you want as clean a headphone out as possible. That is something that the iD14 Mark I struggles with. That's got 0.002% THD plus noise, where in the iD44 it has 0.0008%. So it's way cleaner in terms of the THD plus noise, which I can hear. Personally, I can hear. I genuinely believe that the two headphone outs in the iD44 are much, much better quality. iD14 has 117 dB of dynamic range. iD44's headphone outs have 126 dB of dynamic range. The only downside to the headphone outs of the iD44 is that they've got an impedance of 50 ohm, which isn't going to be enough to drive like really powerful headphones. Like my headphones, for example, like planar headphones or D's and Hyphaman Sandara and stuff like that, they're going to struggle to really drive the headphones. So I do still advise that while the headphone outs of the iD44 are definitely cleaner, I can hear it, I can hear the difference in cleanliness, and I can almost feel like it's got a bit of a wider soundstage as well. It still doesn't sound anywhere near as good as the topping headphone amp. The transients aren't there, but it does still sound way better, in my personal opinion, than the iD14 Mark I headphone outs. In terms of the iD14 Mark II, I know the headphone outs are much more improved, but if we're talking about an iD14 user that's thinking about upgrading to a bigger model of Audient, definitely the iD44 in terms of the headphone outs, you'll hear, in my opinion, you'll hear quite a drastic improvement there. So, there we go. I've spent, would you believe it, an hour fucking recording this because I keep on getting bits wrong and I want to kind of get as many bits right as I can, right? So to kind of sum up, right, is the iD44 a good upgrade to the iD14? Whether it be Mark I, Mark II? 100%. In my opinion, the iD44 has everything that I could want. There's a reason why I wanted it so bad. There's a reason why I pestered Audient for so long. And don't get me wrong, right? I'm not shitting on this, right? I've used this for years, right? It is a fun, for honestly, right? For starting out, probably one of the best budget audio interfaces you can get. Okay, it's limited, but that's what you get for that price. So there you go, guys. There is as much as a professional / unprofessional review as I can do of the Audient iD44. If you were looking for Julian Krauss, I'm really sorry. You got the fucking opposite of Julian Krauss. But I'm delighted with that. Audient range is just fantastic, and I plan on using Audient for many, many, many good years to come. So my name is Paul Third. This is Mixing Wednesdays. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you again next week.